get started. Thank you everybody for attending our webinar today. We have an awesome lineup for you and we'll have lots of opportunity for questions. So first I just want to welcome everybody. I am Shannon Emmerson and I work in More Career Services, which is the career services for business students at the University of Oregon. Just a couple of housekeeping rules as we get started. For any technical issues that you might be having, please use the chat function for that. I will go ahead and check that and answer any questions that you might have and try and help out with any tech issues you might be experiencing throughout. For all other types of questions that you might have for Shannon, our presenter, please put those in Q&A. You can pop them in anytime throughout the presentation. If she's saying something and you're like, oh, I really want to ask a question, feel free to do that. We may interrupt those questions, but we'll probably mostly wait till the end for those. So don't be surprised if you're like, why isn't my question being asked? We'll definitely get to it. But just kind of a few things to keep in mind as we're going. So as I mentioned, I do work with More Career Services, and we are here to support you. So if you are a business major, minor, thinking about majoring in business, come see us. We want to chat with you. And I know right now a lot of things are different in your world. But we are here to support you, and we have a lot of virtual ways for you to engage. And so this is just a snapshot of some of those. You'll get a follow-up email with all of these options, but essentially we are here 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. any way you want to engage, whether that's texting, chatting us, or video chatting us, or phone chatting us. We have a lot of different ways to engage with you. For anybody on the call who is not a business major, the University Career Center also is here to support you, and they have a lot of ways virtually to engage as well. So please do check them out. Now on to why we're here. Shannon Emmerson is our lovely presenter, and I'm going to read a little bit about her. So after graduating from the University of Oregon in 2016, Shannon landed a job working in digital advertising at her dream company, ESPN. After 3 years, the company promoted Shannon to oversee the Omnicom Media's group account management team for all of Disney properties, including FX, Nat Geo, ABC, ESPN, Disney Channel, Disney Digital Network, and Freeform. In her free time, you can find Shannon cheering on the Ducks, spending time with her fiance and their dog, and volunteering with the Humane Society. So with that, Shannon, thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to hear from you.
Absolutely. All right, so now I'm going to go to the presentation. Hi, guys. All right, so as Shannon said, we have two Shannons here. That means it's going to be a good presentation. So as Shannon said, I am the manager of global digital ad operations for the Walt Disney Company. You might be wondering, Shannon, what the heck does that mean? So it means I am essentially in charge of 6 account managers who are in turn in charge of digital advertising across all of these different brands. So they are in charge of, hopefully you get ABC, ESPN, Freeform, FX, National Geographic, ABC News, Disney, ABC-owned television stations, which is essentially like your local news. Whatever you turn on to watch your local news, that's our ABC-owned television stations, and Hulu. So there's a lot of brands in there. I am a visual learner, so I'm going to explain a little bit better about what I do if I use an example. So State Farm actually came to us and they wanted to advertise on The Last Dance about a few weeks ago. I don't know if any of you have watched The Last Dance, but it was a 30 for 30 that we're currently doing about Michael Jordan. So State Farm came in and said, we'd love to sponsor The Last Dance. That is my team's responsibility to make sure that when you log into your computer, that you see that beautiful ad for State Farm. I don't know if a lot of you saw it, but in this case, it was an integrated ad with, I want to say, Kenny, and it was really hilarious. So that was our team's job. I'll use another example. Let's say you want to go and get your daily COVID updates and see what's going on in the world. So you log on to ABC News. Now, if you might notice that when you go to see any of your news videos or anything like that, there's an ad that plays right before that. You might think it's a little annoying if you're like my fiance. He gets really annoyed and he keeps saying, why do you have to put a roof over our head with advertising? But I promise you, maybe you'll see it a little bit differently. The Walt Disney Company actually does make a ton of money off these advertisements. Last year, In 2019, they reported about $9 billion just from our department, which is huge. So that puts a little bit of different perspective on the pesky advertisements that may annoy you from day to day. So that is a little bit about what it is that I do. And I was going to show you this hype video, as I call it, but unfortunately it's not working. So instead, Amy is going to, and the Career Center is going to send it out to you tomorrow in the follow-up email, so you can watch it there. What it was a video showcasing everything that my team touches. So the Walt Disney Company is a really, really big company, and it's hard to grasp all the things that we have to advertise on. And this video showcases from sporting events to ABC News to FX, Nat Geo platforms, everything that it is that I touch on my day-to-day job. So I highly recommend looking at it tomorrow when you do get the link. All right, now I just want to tell you guys a little bit about how I went from the University of Oregon to Disney advertising sales. So I have known that I've wanted to work for ESPN since forever. That was my dream job. And I actually went to the University of Oregon and picked that as my school because of the way that I knew it could connect me to the sporting world. I knew when I went to the U of O that I was going to talk to everyone and anyone that would listen to me and that would offer me advice. So one day I was sitting in the Honors Lounge at Lilith, and I actually overheard someone talking about how they had done the ESPN internship. And I eavesdropped a little bit. And I knew who he was. His name was Drew. And I knew that he was connected to the same professor that I had a good relationship with. So I asked that professor to connect us. About a week went by, and we set up our meeting. And I prepared, oh my gosh, for that meeting forever. I treated it like an interview. And him and I spent hours just talking about ESPN and talking about what it is I could do to maybe get the internship, talking about different people I could talk to and his advice on what he did. Picked apart my resume. It was wonderful. It doesn't sound wonderful to have someone pick apart your resume, but it actually was very needed. So I talked to him, and he must have been impressed or scared by the amount of questions that I asked, because he then referred me to two other alumni who were also University of Oregon alumni, I should say, that worked at ESPN in New York City. And these two individuals were incredible. They no longer work at ESPN, so they've moved on to other companies, which is one of the best part about networking, is then you have your hand in a bunch of different companies. But they sat with me for, again, an hour on the phone giving me advice. And I treated those two like they were interviews as well, because they kind of were. I treat networking as an opportunity to showcase people your best version of yourself. And when I did apply for the for the ESPN internship, these U of O alums that I networked with became my advocates. And there were thousands and thousands of people that applied for this ESPN internship, and I knew I could differentiate myself from all those people and all those paper resumes by having someone at ESPN vouch for me, then maybe I could have a shot at getting the internship. Fast forward, and I have 3 rounds of interviews, a few panic attacks later because I was so nervous, and I did land the spot at the ESPN internship, and I was going to live in New York for about 10 weeks, which I'd never been to New York before. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I knew I was super excited. So when I got there, one of my now mentors, who actually did interview me for this internship, he's amazing, and he told me to treat the internship like it was a 10-week job interview. So I did. I networked with every single person I possibly could. I attended every single event. I basically even emailed the president of the company of ESPN and asked him to meet with me, which he did. He said, I have this time open, come up, I'd love to talk to you and hear your thoughts on the intern program. And so I sat at the time, that was John Skipper, who was the president of ESPN. I sat with the CFO. It was incredible. And I call it my intern card, and that's what all the interns called it, because when you are trying to get a job or you are an intern and everyone knows that you're starting a career, they want to give you advice. And my mentor said, just swipe your intern card and it'll let you in every single door at this company. And I used that to my best ability, and it really paid off. At the time, ESPN wasn't the company that gave anyone jobs right after. They've now changed that, I think last year. And you had to network still, so you didn't just get offered a job at the end of the internship. So when I went back to school, I then networked as much as I possibly could. And the thing that's a little bit different about how I networked this time was that I knew that I didn't want to be in New York. I knew that I wanted to be in LA. New York is wonderful for a lot of people. For me, it kind of overwhelmed me, and I don't think I was able to really handle New York in the way that some people are able to handle New York. So I knew that I wanted to go to LA. So I was networking with people that I had loved at my internship, hoping that they would know someone in the LA office that I could then maybe get my hand in the LA office, which luckily for me, it worked out and a job did open up in the LA office. My first job out of school was a coordinator job, and I was supporting all the account managers. So I did all the jobs that the account managers didn't want to do. I did reporting, all the small things that I loved at the time and I raised my hand for because I wanted to work really, really hard, and I wanted to prove to these people that I could be an account manager one day and gain their trust. So let's see, then after about 6 months, I was promoted to an account manager on the team. And remember, this is just still ESPN. So at the time, we hadn't become Disney advertising sales yet. We were just advertising for ESPN. So I was for an AM for ESPN for 2 years specifically. And again, I raised my hand for just about everything that I possibly could. I'm able to get this far in my career because they knew that they could hand me any project and I'd say yes, which is, it's good. I mean, you may not sleep sometimes, but it's good. And after about 2 years of working for an AM for just ESPN, what happened next was something I could have never expected. I thought that I was just going to work for ESPN for a very long time. And instead, about, a year ago, the company decided to reorg because Disney purchased Fox, which meant Nat Geo and Fox were then coming into our company. So this big reorg happened. And I was rightfully so a little nervous. You never know what happens with reorgs, but my boss and I have a really good relationship, and if you know anything about, if you can tell anything about me from this, it's that I'm very vocal, and I like to communicate to people my desires and drive and everything that I want to do in my life. So I told my boss from the very beginning that I wanted to be a manager, and I wanted to manage people. And from the, I'm going to say, 2.5 years that I started the company to when I got the manager job, he is a really good boss, and he would give me different small projects that I could do to set me up for success when I did hopefully get the experience to be a manager. For example, he would bring people into interview, and he would have me interview them, and he would have me be the person that made decisions on hiring and training and looking over resumes, and maybe mentoring certain people, that like the coordinator that came in, he would have me mentor them. So when fast forward again to the reorg, and when my boss called me that day to tell me that we were reorging, I was again nervous, but he told me the good news is that there's a manager spot opened and we want you to take it. So I was shocked, which was wonderful. It's just not what you expect with a reorg. And I actually did get promoted to a manager at that time to manage a few companies that I had never managed before or even worked on before in my life. So at that point, I was now not only managing ESPN, but I was managing all the different brands that we talked about in the beginning. I want to say there's 7 of them now, which is, it was my greatest challenge, and I am so grateful for it because I had no idea I was going to be here. If you would have asked me, hey, Shannon, when you're graduating college, where do you think you're going to be? I would have never thought I'd have this opportunity to manage all these different global brands, to have something like the NBA Finals be right in my back corner and be able to see on a daily basis all these people on the studio shows, but then also be able to go to the Disney studio lot and watch different films be filmed because that's part of our sales strategy. And it's really opened my eyes and honestly a lot of doors for me to be able to work for the global Walt Disney Company instead of just ESPN. It's now ESPN is a part of my life, and I have all these other aspects of my life. It's still a very, very big part of my life, but it really did open doors to a lot of a world that I didn't even know my doors would be open to. So now what I do is I manage the Omnicom Media Group. I manage the group of AMs, like I said before. And you may hear me call it OMG. That's not the, oh my God, it's OMG as in Omnicom Media Group. So that is a little bit about my story and the very, very high level story of how I got to where I am today. And there are honestly 3 different things that I hope everyone takes away from this, from my story. And it's to network a ton, to make sure you go to the Career Center, and to really work hard. I'm going to start with networking because I love Olaf, and I love that Olaf picture. But if you know anything from the story that I just told you, it's that networking is the most important part of your career. And I think a lot of people hear networking and they think, it's a chore. It's a lot of hard work. It's really stressful. And I agree. I want to tell you guys that I get anxiety when I network still to this day. I've networked a ton. And I even follow up with some of my mentors and I get nervous. So I totally understand the feeling of it being really overwhelming. But I just consider networking being kind to everyone you meet and just getting to know someone. So I would highly encourage you guys to network with people, with your fellow classmates, with your alumni. Sign up for LinkedIn Premium. That's what I did when I first was on the job. The job hunt was I signed up for LinkedIn Premium for a few weeks and maybe even a few months. And I used that tool. And I canceled it once I didn't feel like I needed it anymore, because LinkedIn Premium gives you a lot of great opportunities that the regular LinkedIn doesn't. I also, in this section, before I move on to the other 2, I want to mention a few things that when somebody networks with me, I really appreciate that they do. So one of them is to always, always send a thank you note. And I know a lot of you guys know this, but you'd be surprised how many people don't know to send a thank you note. It can be a really simple sentence. Thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it. Or you can add in something that you talked about. It's always a really nice touch to add in. I really appreciated when you talked about this, this, and this. I also recommend you guys come with questions to the networking session. When I try and network with someone, I want to make sure I'm respectful of their time and that I make sure I come armed and ready with questions so I can fill that blank space. As everyone knows, networking can be a little awkward. So you want to have just anything right next to you that you can pull out of the hat and say, okay, this is the question that I'm going to ask next. So they feel as though their time is well spent. The last thing I want to recommend for you guys is to find common interests with the person and to appeal to them on a personal level. My favorite thing in the world to do is to write down, let's say you're talking to, John Skipper, and he is currently talking about how his kid has a soccer game this weekend. And it's Friday and you know the soccer game's tomorrow. When you write the thank you note, maybe you add in a little, I hope your son's soccer game went well, or I hope your daughter's softball game went well. It's just a nice personal touch to show them that you care and that you're a human being and they're a human being. You're just recognizing that there is more than just a business transaction. You're trying to establish a friendship. I highly recommend that. I also recommend if you, let's say you meet the VP in the office and they are talking about that their kid's soccer game was this weekend, you don't see them for another few months. I have notes on my desk, not creepy notes, just like little notes about, his son's name is Anthony, and his daughter's name is Lyra. So when I see him next, I say, oh, how are Anthony and Lyra? It's just, again, a great way to appeal to different people on personal levels and to differentiate yourself. Highly, highly recommend keeping just a little bit of tabs on people's lives when you do network with them, because I just think it's a wonderful tool. All right, so that's my networking spiel. Now, you're going to think that I had to do the Career Center talk because we're talking for the Career Center, but they actually did not ask me to do this. This is something that I just really, truly believe in, and something that helped me get to where I am today. So the Career Center allowed me to become an expert in 3 different things. And it was my resume, my cover letter, and my interview techniques. I'll start with the resume and cover letters. As a manager, when I have to hire people, I've had to hire almost every single person on my team, so about 6 or 7 people. And I get hundreds and hundreds of resumes for this. Now, if I see a resume that has bad punctuation, or the spacing is off, or the font is clear that the font is not meant to be that font and it's just a lack of attention to detail, I won't look at your resume anymore. I won't bring you in for an interview because you have just showed me that this piece of paper is clearly not that important to you, even though it's the first thing that I see. So make sure your resume is the best version of any resume you've ever seen. You'll be shocked at how many resumes I get with words that are misspelled and spacing that's all over the place. It's insane. And the Career Center actually has a ton of different ways that you can get your resume looked over. I think I had every single person in the Career Center look over my resume at multiple times a day. And it was amazing. They helped me to make sure that my resume was bulletproof, and it was incredible. Same with the cover letter. So cover letter is interesting because you have to make it unique. I always thought that a cover letter was just reiterating your resume, but that's not true at all, and the Career Center taught me that. I would have totally bombed my cover letter without the Career Center. The last thing I do want to really try and make sure everyone knows is so important is to do mock interviews. So when I was interviewing, I practiced like crazy. I had the Career Center mock interviews, and I had my dad mock interview me. I had my mom, my cousins, everyone that I possibly could mock interviewed me. And then I would go on Google and try and find different interview questions that may be asked. It is amazing to me how many people don't know how to interview and how to answer questions for interviews that are very, very simple questions that have been around for forever. For example, what's your greatest weakness? Know the answers to certain questions like that. And the only way you're going to know if you know the answers is if you practice. So definitely make sure that you practice your interviewing skills, get your resume checked, get your cover letter checked, and make sure that all 3 of those things are bulletproof, and you'll have a way better chance at getting your foot in the door. All right. So the next thing is hard work. I know this is self-explanatory, but you have to work really hard. One of the reasons why I put this on here is actually when I went to we call it ERGs at ESPN, and it means Employee Resource Group. And Rachel Nichols was talking at one of these. And I asked Rachel Nichols what her biggest piece of advice was. And she said, you have to work really hard. There's no magic pill, as LeBron says. You just have to work your absolute hardest and do what's best for you, but make sure that every day you put in 110%, because if you do, you're going to get really far. There is no magic answer. You just have to raise your hand and work a lot, work hard, but be right about it. Take care of yourself, work out, but work hard. All right. So the last thing before I do this Q&A with you guys that I really, really want to make sure it's my #1 piece of advice that I give everyone is everyone in your life is going to give you a lot of advice, and including me. I just gave you a ton of advice, and those are my opinions, but you need to do what's best for you. You need to make sure that whatever you do in your career feels good to your heart and your soul and your brain. Make sure that you don't just take someone's advice because you think it's the right thing to do for what their life is. If I took everyone's advice, I'd be in New York and I'd be probably really unhappy. But they told me I would never make it anywhere if I didn't work in New York. And I knew that wasn't right for me. So I decided to move to LA because that was the best case scenario for me. So with that, please just make sure you take care of yourselves, work really hard, get your resumes taken care of by the Career Center, do your mock interviews, and just stay true to yourself. That's all the advice that I have.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. I'm excited to get into this Q&A with folks.
Too.
So we already have some questions, which is awesome. For everybody watching, listening, please feel free to pop your questions into Q&A now, and we will get started. So your first question, Shannon, I'm going to say your name a lot because it's a good name. What hard and soft skills did you use most when in your intern role? And then what about the ones you're using now in your professional role?
So I would say the flexibility is a really big one. You have to make sure you're flexible because when you are in an internship role and even when you're in a manager role, you need to make sure that you're doing things that are best for the team around you. When you're an intern, you have to be nimble and make sure that you're doing where they need you, what they're doing, doing everything that you need to do to be where they need you to be. And when you're a manager, you need to make sure that you're where your team needs you to be. So I would say be flexible is one of the best ones. And I would say be kind. I would be being kind to every single person, no matter who it is, including the building security guard, every person, your coworker, tell them they're doing a great job when they're doing a great job, because I just think positivity goes a long way. And I actually had my SVP tell me that was the number one thing SVP means Senior Vice President, stand out to him was how positive I was. And he said he didn't see a lot of people that were like that. And I thought, that's so interesting. And I highly recommend that if you meet anyone high up, that you are just positive and happy and kind.
Awesome. Good tips. Okay, next question. I'm kind of going out of order here. I apologize. But
I love it.
What is it like to do business at Disney and ESPN? Are they nimble, slow-moving? Do they move cautiously or with urgency?
Everything's quick at Disney. Everything is so quick. They are fire drills in my vocabulary now because there's always fire drills since we work in advertising, which is a 24-hour business. Advertising I love it because it's fast-moving, and as you can tell, I'm constantly trying to go to the next subject, the next thing, and that's what digital is great about. It's always changing. My team asks me questions sometimes, and I swear to God I have the right answer, and they will have changed it within 24 hours because we found a better way to deliver advertisements on our website. And it's wonderful. It keeps you on your toes. So I would 100% say that you have to be nimble. It's not a slow-moving company whatsoever.
Nice. I love it. Questions are flowing in. So next one from Keith. What is your favorite interview question?
Oh, so I'll do this one first. My favorite interview questions, and my boss says this too, that people ask her and ask me during the interview process is, what characteristics do you think I need to be successful in this role? Or what do you see what person do you think is the most successful in this role and why? Things like that really get the manager to showcase to you what they're looking for. I think that's a really smart question. And let's see, what's my favorite interview question to ask? Oh, my favorite interview question to ask, because I know how prepared you are, is what's your greatest weakness? I know I mentioned that before, but the reason why is that I have seen some people that have very easy answers to what's your greatest weakness, which is not a problem whatsoever. You can have the typical, I am really bad at delegating, or it showcases that you are you know, a great hard worker. Or you can come up with some answers that are show you're a little bit more vulnerable. Again, you have to read the interviewer. Someone like me would love this. My boss, when I was interviewing her, she said, you know what, I actually can talk a lot and I need to learn to step back. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. You've clearly thought about this. You're working on growing and becoming the best version of yourself. And that's the kind of boss that I want to have. So I like that question. It gives a lot of insight into how the person's brain functions.
Nice. And I like what you're mentioning there because it's really too about being authentic to you. So
Yeah.
what's comfortable? What are you comfortable sharing? What do you want to show about yourself in your answers? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
Good tips. All right. Lots of questions flowing here. So next one is from Amber. If you could change anything about your journey to where you got today, what would it be, if anything?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. So I think I would trust myself a little bit more. I have what I call imposter syndrome. So even when I was doing this webinar and I was preparing for it, I thought, gosh, when did I get to this point in my life? When did I become the person giving advice? And to this day, I'm still working on it, I wish I would trust my intelligence and trust my hard work and know that I don't need to have that much anxiety leading up to things like this and leading up to the internship. And I think it makes me work a little bit harder because I am nervous, but I wish that I just trusted my gut a little bit more than I typically do. So I'm not as nervous going into certain meetings and stuff like that.
One good one. Next question is from Haiti. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Can you tell us more about your day-to-day now?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to bore anyone, but yes, absolutely. Okay, so my day is, so I manage the Omnicom Media Group, or OMG Advertising Holding Company is what we call them. And so basically what we do is we have a few things that our account managers, I should say, have to do. We have traffic ads, so I'll start from the beginning. An advertiser comes in and tells us, I want to run this State Farm campaign on Last Dance. Let's just use the same example. So the AM will then say, okay, well, I need to know what your creative is, how much money you're willing to spend, how long you want to go for, so what the duration of your campaign is. And then what we do is we package it into this plan that the advertiser now knows, okay, you are now running on, let's say, the NBA Finals. And the AM then goes in, makes sure what we call trafficking. So we take the ad and we put it into our system. We use Google. And the system will then hopefully read the ad correctly. So after we traffic this ad, what we do is we make sure the advertiser knows it's live. So we send screenshots of the ad. And then we actually have to make sure that the campaign is running smoothly and is delivering the amount of money that we promised the advertiser that it would. Now, there's a lot of different tactics that go into making sure that the campaign delivers in full. Hopefully, you just forecast a right amount of impressions, but as you might guess, guessing when LeBron's going to announce that he's going to move to the Lakers is almost impossible. So we have influx of traffic when we don't even realize it, when there's big stories. So sometimes we have to make sure pause campaigns because we don't know if this is going to over deliver is what we call it. And it's constantly having your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the industry and making sure that the clients are happy. So there's a lot of client interaction, which I really enjoy. I enjoy client service and making sure that I have that sort of great relationship with my clients. And so then my day-to-day, after all the AM's traffic, all of those things, and creatives, is to make sure that we're hitting our goal and that we are being a good liaison to the salespeople, because the sales team is what is selling all of this. So I'm constantly being a system of checks and balances, making sure that my AMs are taken care of and that everything's running smoothly, and that the sales team also feels heard and knows when they can come to me for any issues or anything like that. So it is a lot of strategy on my end, which I love. Every day is different, and every day there's a new issue or fire drill, as they say. But again, it keeps you on your toes. There's a great way of being an advocate for your team and knowing when it's your job to stand up for your team, but also knowing when to give feedback to your team. And that's a lot of my role right now too. So that's the best I can explain it. It's so hard to explain jobs sometimes.
Of course. How would you, I also think maybe part of the question was to kind of in this virtual world that we're facing.
Oh,
how
yeah.
would that maybe changed a little bit for your day-to-day, or is it really still similar aside from Zoom meetings all the time?
Yeah, so that's a great question. My day-to-day is actually pretty much the exact same, except I'm on video chat with everyone. So I still have to kind of get dressed and put some makeup on and make sure that I'm presentable because I am going to see my team. But my day-to-day has been pretty much the same. Oh, I will say that what has changed is I have focused on ABC News a lot more than I have on ESPN. As you can imagine, sports have stopped and ABC News has ramped up because of COVID. So a lot of our campaigns are now running on news, and that has been a large portion of my day is learning the ABC business. And as you know, I was on the legacy ESPN side. So it's been a great opportunity to just throw myself into the ABC side of things. That's kind of how my day's changed, I would say.
Perfect. Awesome. Still got quite a few questions. That's great. We're going to go for about 8-10 more minutes just for folks watching, so you know. So next question from Madison. What groups or activities were you involved in at U of O that helped you get to where you are in your career?
Yeah. Okay, so I was part of the Warsaw Sports Business Club, and I actually worked at the Career Center too, so that really helped me. I was a advisor at the Career Center. I was in Rotaract, which I don't know if anyone knows that, but Rotary is a community service club, so it's all about giving back, and I don't necessarily think that helped me with my career, but it helped feed my soul a little bit and helped give back. So I would say it did help. And then I would go and sit in on just about every professor office hours that I possibly could. That really helped me get to know all my professors. Oh, and I was part of the honors program for business honors program, I think it's still called. Yeah, okay.
Perfect. So that answers the next one of the questions was, what did you major in? So obviously business. But I'm going to add on to that was, can you maybe think of 1 or 2 classes that you thought was really pivotal for the work, for getting at least started in your career? If you can reflect on that.
So I actually majored in accounting, which I'm going to throw everyone for a loop right now because everyone's going to be like, why in the world would you put yourself through that too? But it ties into the question you asked, which was what class do I think really mattered? And I would say the number one reason why I went into accounting was because I wanted to be able to read a financial statement. I want to be able to run a company one day, and I needed to know how operating income worked and what it was. And you have no idea how many times in the earnings statements your boss will tell you, did you actually listen to the earnings statements? What did you think? And it's really pivotal to be able to speak on that. It gives you, some sort of street cred, I would say, in the business industry. So I would listen to the accounting classes, the finance classes, make sure that you understand what goes into any sort of financial statement for a company, because it happens to come up a lot.
And life skills too, I'm sure. Very helpful.
Yes, I do my taxes.
Okay, cool. Next question from Tess is, what are some goals you have for your career? Have those goals shifted from the goals you had when you started in your job?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. So when I first came to the University of Oregon, I wanted to be a sports reporter. And then I quickly realized I hate writing, and you kind of need that to be a sports reporter. So then my career shifted to wanting to be in the business space, and I still, to be completely honest with you, I don't know exactly what I want to do next. I think I want to stay in advertising. I want to just keep moving up, but I think the digital advertising space changes so much that it's almost impossible for me to guess where it is that I could possibly go next. I do want to also say that it's good to have a direction. So if you're throwing darts at a dartboard, you may not necessarily need to hit the bullseye every time on where you think your career path's going to go. I think the most impactful book I ever read was Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, and she said, your career should be a jungle gym, not a ladder, because no one's career can just go straight up. You may need to go down the slide, or you may need to go across the monkey bars to make a lateral move, and that's okay, and it's all going to be for this wonderful career you're going to have at the end of the day, and it all makes sense at the end. So I try and keep that in mind and not have career goals and next steps, but not have my entire life planned out, which is very hard for me.
Yeah, hard for most people.
Yeah.
All right, looks like we have 2 more questions. So next one, Keith, from Keith. When you needed to pivot to working on the news, what learning techniques and tricks did you use to get up to speed?
So I relied on my team a lot. The number one thing that I hoped I earned from my team was their trust, that they could ask me and come to me with all their questions and mistakes, and I could come to them and tell them all the questions and mistakes. So you're human. Everyone's going to need help at some point in their career. And I really leaned on my account manager that's focused on ABC. And I had her just train me in all the things I already didn't know. And I think it's wonderful to be the best when you're the manager and to know everything, but I think there's also power in being vulnerable to your team and allowing them to be vulnerable as well. So I learned that I need to put trust in my team, and I need to be vulnerable with my team. And I also learned that I learn by doing. So I needed to get a campaign and learn it. I couldn't just be taught, otherwise I was never going to learn it. So I think it's all about learning your own techniques and how your brain functions and works. I definitely needed to get hands-on in that instance.
Nice. And I think this is a last fun question to end on here. So what is your favorite part of working for the Disney franchise? And do you go to Disneyland all of the time?
Oh my gosh, I go to Disney all the time. Not now because it's closed. But we do. We get tickets to go to Disney all the time, and it's a huge perk for working with Disney. My favorite part, so I get this question asked in interviews, and I always preface it by saying I'm not answering this on the cliche, I love my team answer. Truly, if you met my team, they're just a bunch of rock stars there, and they're not even on this call, so you know I'm being honest. They're the kindest, most generous, hardworking people, and I have no idea how I got so lucky to be able to hire all these people, but they push me every single day to be a better version of myself. So I would say that's currently my favorite part for working for Disney, but probably what the question was going for was I never knew that I could just walk onto the Disney studio lot and watch different shows being filmed, or be in the background not knowing for one episode of Blackish. And it's just so cool. You don't understand how big this company is that you're working for until you're immersed in the middle of this movie studio, or you're immersed in the middle of Disneyland, or you're watching Nat Geo on the TV and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I helped with that advertisement, or I had a hand in that. So I think the coolest part is seeing how much my daily life is surrounded by Disney. Just watching Disney Plus, for example. Yeah.
Good point. Awesome. Shannon, thank you so much. That ends our Q&A. And anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn for anyone that's on this. I think it's a really powerful tool to make sure that you're connecting with everyone as you meet everyone. And if you do want to reach out to me and talk, I'm more than happy to. And I think Shannon or Amy or any of the career services, wonderful people will have my information. So it was so nice to talk to you all, and thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. And for everybody watching, again, remember, Career Services is here to support you. If you're a business student, more Career Services. And if you're not a business student, the Career Center. We are here, as the lovely presenter Shannon mentioned, to provide lots of guidance for you all. So with that, we will wrap up. And everybody, we hope you have a great evening.
Bye, guys. Stay safe and healthy.